Hello, welcome to another episode of Prove All Things. Glad to have everyone joining us today, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or in the CGI Digital Network app, whether on your phone, tablet, or on your Roku or Apple TV devices. We're happy to have you here. I'm joined with co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff, doing okay. I guess we had a little technical difficulty there in the first 5 minutes. Is everything working well now? What do you think?
I think it's working well, but we will see. So we thank everybody out there who are tuning in to us a little bit late, but we're glad to have you out there. Please give us your comments and suggestions and all things within the chat rooms. We're glad you're on there. So how's your week been, Mike?
Yeah, I visited Kansas last weekend, Jeff, Tonganoxie, Kansas. I had planned to get out there prior to COVID hitting. I had that planned, I guess, for 2020. And then we shut things down as far as travel was concerned. And I wanted to get back there. To make a long story short, I got back last weekend and we had about 65 people there. So I think there are about three groups in that area that get together on occasion for the holy days and things like that. So they all got together when I came out to speak to them last Sabbath there. And it was a really, really good time to have all those people there and get to visit with some people I had not seen in a long time. And Max Davis, one of our CGI elders, was there.
Mm-hmm.
He had come up with a couple people from his congregation. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's in Kansas, I believe Wichita, near
Mm-hmm.
Wichita, and might have been a 3-hour trip for them to get over there. So it was good to see them also.
Well, that sounds good. We in Atlanta did not have services this past week because everybody was gone on vacation. It was just a week where everybody was gone somewhere, whether Canada, New Jersey. I took a cruise and we were in Mexico last week, which was fun. I really learned a lot about the Mayans. That
Okay.
more about the Mayans than I never ever knew before. Just I guess by visiting a Mayan site, and definitely very interesting to think about those things that these civilizations were around at the time of things we read in the Bible. That they were things that were going on here in America, as these big gigantic temples and trade and all this was on the other side of the earth. And I start thinking about there had to have been a time, I guess, after the Tower of Babel, where the peoples migrated to the Americas and all, and it's definitely, looking at these temples, you start thinking about the Tower of Babel and thinking about if that's just something that they like. We remember building something like this, so we'll build some more of these temples into heaven, and that's what they were,
Yeah.
like a connection to heaven.
There's some similarities with the North American, South American, Mesoamerican area, and what was going on over in the Middle East and Egypt and Babylon and places like that. Similar structures were constructed. Yeah.
Yeah, similar structure, similar beliefs. It just there was that point where they kind of split off and they had to go on their own with their own language. But definitely, you can see that similarity, kind of going back to that common time we read about in the Bible. So it was
Right.
definitely a fun trip. I'm glad to be back home and definitely excited for doing a live program again today. Even though we were
Right.
having a
Right.
little sketchy start, but definitely we're good right now.
Yeah. It looks like we got some people coming in now, so they're catching on. Okay.
All right, so we are joined today by our first guests that we've had on Prove All Things, and one of our best. I think they're all good. I can't, don't want to rank people, but a great guest we have today joining us from CEM, president of CEM. We have Blake Silverstein. How you doing?
Hey guys, good to be here with you. Flattery will get you everywhere, Jeff. Appreciate that. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys. We always have a good conversation, and I really like to, you think about these things, and you want to know what smart people. Here we go, flattery the other way. Have to say about these things, right? And so you guys always have some good feedback. So yeah, good to be here with you.
Hey, Blake, anything new with CEM that you want to let us know about, or everything?
Yeah, man, thanks. I mean, I think same thing for CGI right now. CEM is focused on getting our app, in everyone's hands. It's still a kind of a getting this thing in front of all the, not just the people in churches of God, but also in all of Christendom, right? To download our app. So we are coming up on 16,000. So,
Great.
woefully behind CGI, but in a lot of ways, that's great for us. Kind of what our numbers are. That's a huge success for us. And also the media plays that we've had have been tremendous. So we are also working on some other things like getting all of our YEA programs digitized. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's, 800 and something lessons. So that's been great. You can find out all on our website. Those are free for download for anyone that has.
You have all 800 now, or you're working towards 800?
We're working towards it. So we have our first year, which is basically about 300 of the lessons. So,
okay.
And what it's done in a way, so it's hopefully going to be intuitive. And so once we get it all digitized, we can then create an app that again helps people to just quickly and easily get a lesson for whatever age group of kids they might be teaching that day for Sabbath school. So yeah, working on a couple different things, working on getting an audio version of the thread. And, it's amazing. We still have unreleased messages from Ron Dart. So it's still, I say unreleased. I mean, they were released, many years ago, and now we've digitized them, remastered them. So stay tuned. We got some extra messages for you, keep coming back.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of good material offered at CEM, a lot of good study material for anyone, whatever church of God you're in. I think CEM does provide some good study material and definitely some good resources for Sabbath schools and Bible studies at church.
Right.
I know the CGI church in Dallas was using some of the Bible studies from CEM through their weekly Bible study, and I was part of that some when visiting, and I was like, "Wow, this is great stuff." So it's definitely good material that y'all have that is available.
Thank you.
For the Church of God to use. So we have a question out there, and the question is, what's the subject?
Yeah, great question. So I want to know what you guys think about this this issue. I would say it's probably the biggest problem facing the church. I think we've talked about it a little bit in other programs, but the problem of generational replacement for the church. And that's a fancy way of saying, the young people are not attending church as much as their older counterparts. And that has gotten worse over time. We've seen a general trend downwards over the last, 30, 40 years of people not claiming Christianity as their primary religion, at least here in the United States, for sure. And the world, overall, worldwide even, we've seen a drop over the last 100 years in 3 percentage points of self-professed Christians. And that's accounting for the rise in population. But yeah, I wanted to talk about what the gospel message has to offer this generation with you guys, because I know that you're interested in that as well.
Yeah, because I guess, if we keep doing it the way we're doing it, maybe in the 50s or 60s or 70s, we're probably not addressing the right subjects, I guess, or right thoughts of folks.
Exactly. Yeah. So just to dig into some of that.
Okay, great.
Okay, sounds good, Blake. So get us rolling here. How do you want to proceed?
Yeah. So, I mean, reaching this generation, that could be taken a lot of different ways. What do you mean by generation? Are we talking about the greatest generation? What a title for them, huh? The greatest generation back in pre-1928, named the greatest generation, I think, by the book by the same title, The Greatest Generation.
Okay.
These are the folks who went through the Great Depression. These are the people who fought the Nazis, right? And so I think maybe they deserve that title as the Greatest Generation. But these were very hardworking individuals. These were folks that were very interested in when they came back. They birthed the largest cohort, which was the baby boomers. So not necessarily those guys per se. There is the generation after that, which is the baby boomers. And then, I'm not so worried about them. I think that they're attending church pretty regularly. And then we have Gen X, which has shown a drop off of an attendance over the last several years. And then we also have what came after them is the millennials, which I'm a millennial, an elder millennial at that. And then the latest generation, which is Gen Z, also endearingly referred to as Zoomers. So, let's talk about, some of the differences you guys have noticed over the last couple of years, generationally, the differences in the different generations. Have you guys noticed any major trends that have changed over the last couple of years? Maybe the last 100 years, let's say?
Well, I think right now the technology is a big deal. Trying to get my daughter off of her cell phone and communicating with her friends. And I see that amongst all of her friends and all the really young people. But I think the last generation you mentioned, they definitely came up with cell phones, the internet, all that technological know-how has kind of distracted them, I think, pulled them away from one-on-one, face-to-face communication. I went outside and played with my friends and came in, and there was no connection to my friends anymore once I came in the house. I wasn't on the phone for hours and hours, but technology makes that so easy today. I think that is one major thing that has made the last generation you mentioned, and even my daughter's generation, which is younger, kind of different from those previous generations.
You know what, you mentioned that, and I have noticed, and think about it, because I guess I would be considered Generation X, right? Gen X. I think, yeah. So it's probably the same as Mike.
I'm
Gen
at
X.
the end of the baby boomers.
Oh, you're at the end of the baby boomers. All right, so I'm maybe I'm the beginning of the the Gen X group, and what I noticed is that when I was young, like we had like 3 channels of television. If I wanted to watch or listen to a song on the radio, I had to wait for it to come on. If I was lucky, I could start taping it and maybe tape the song and be able to listen to it. But now with kids and with our kids that we have, there's like just complete access to everything. If you want to listen to a song, you don't wait. You listen to it right now. It's instant gratification. If you want to watch something, it's all out there. All this access to information, and a lot of good information, but mostly bad information is out there to affect minds. And so I think having all that media and information, I guess we don't really know what's going to happen because it's kind of new, but it definitely is going to be a lot different. And definitely we see, I guess, trends, I guess, with the Gen Z as far as some morality changing than what we were grown up to expect.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely been, I would say, over the last 100 years, we've seen just, let's say, writ large generally, that we've seen there's been a lot of, you guys cover the data from, Barna, and then from Pew Research Center as well, talking, they survey people, across the United States primarily, but, worldwide as well. But they've we've noticed over the last 100 years, people have moved away from big institutions, or they have generally they're starting to distrust large institutions or grand narratives. That's called the Post-Modernist, effect, where, they have these kind of, so Americans are, they're not as trusting of big corporations as much now. They're also not as trusting of church now, government now, right? We've seen that trend, right, where people, psychologically, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age over the last 100 years has kind of moved away from large institutions. So there's kind of that going on over the last 100 years. I would say over the last 50 years, I have some notes here, so I'm kind of cheating, but computers, you already talked about this. A lot of, computers are everywhere nowadays over the last 50 years. Globalization, in other words, the world has become very small because of the microchip age, right? So we have a lot of that. And someone on here says, what are the positive and negative effects of technological advances in the new generation? I think that's what we might want to discuss that a little bit, because I think that's important. Say over the last 20 years, we've seen, like Mike was talking about, cell phone use has become just, I think it was in 2021, half the world's population has access to smartphones, not just phones, but smartphones. And then 62% of those individuals suffer from what's called nomophobia, which is a phobia about not having cell phone connectivity or being away from your phone. It's an actual clinical thing now, right? So
Wow.
Half of the people, if you have your cell phone across the room, they're kind of anxious. They're kind of, you might notice this from your kids too, right? They're really anxious to get their device. And I think that's going to continue to increase over the next couple of years. And of course, social media has taken over. And I think you talked about it. We don't know what that's done to us as a people, to be so connected at that level of knowing what you're eating every day, knowing where you're going. Jeff, we were able to kind of go on this trip with you. If we were friends on Facebook, I went on that trip with you. You're giving some great pictures, and that's
Well, I was unconnected, like by choice, not to have any internet the whole time we were there. In Mexico, I got like a free Wi-Fi on the bus that we were going out. I was like, I got free Wi-Fi for like 30 minutes, so I was able to get on Facebook and upload some stuff, and do some things. But I kind of like disconnecting. I know it's because of the way I was raised. This is part of our jobs, part of our connection to people. But I love it when nobody can get in touch with me or call me and stuff, if you can get away from it all. But yeah, that connection that there's definitely, they've showed for like teenage girls and even teenage boys that social media causes depression, that makes them, it just leads to unhappiness. There's all these, like with Instagram, all these body problems because people see all these filters, or people, these ideal images, and they can't live up to those type of things, and it makes people, more depressed, more socially isolated, and living.
I want to address what you just said, Jeff. My daughter and I were having a little conversation recently, and she was down, and I was like, "What are you down about? What's the problem?" And she talked about somebody on social media had said something about her, and she was down about the fact that was wrong, and they didn't know her, and this and that. And I said, "Why do you even care what someone's saying on there? Do you think they're going to go home and they're going to obsess over you and what they said about you, that they're thinking about you all the time?" I said, they don't care. They just made an offhanded statement and put it on social media, and it's meaningless. You're giving it energy, you're giving it power, but that's what's going on, because these kids are so young, and they grew up with these devices. They think this is important. They think this is something that matters. And it doesn't add up to a hill of beans. It's all in what you make it. But they're making it into something because of the importance of technology today, and the fact that everyone has these, and everyone's getting on Facebook and Instagram and you name it, Twitter, and they're thinking these things are important. There was none of this when I was growing up. There was none of this media, and I have a bone to pick with those out there who argue, well, Facebook isn't allowing this and Instagram's not allowing that. Hey, they're private companies. They can do whatever they want. There was none of this. We can't give this the importance that we're giving it. In my opinion, that's just my 2 cents. I wanted to address that real quick there.
Sure.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's, so I agree with you. As much as I agree with you, that's where they're at, though. And so we're talking. So for this conversation, we're talking about, how do we reach this generation, being the Zoomers, Gen Z, and the millennials. And so let's say that you've just built the case, James or Mike, that that is what's going on for them, right? That's really a part of their life. Their whole value structure is circling around cell phones, social media, really placing what you said, which was kind of a disproportionate amount of concern about what others think of them. And that's definitely a criticism that they've received, millennials and Gen Z alike. So let's kind of think about, okay, that's their world. That's what's going on for them. That's what's primarily what's happening. And I don't know if you guys have followed some of the research from Pew of why some of these young people are not showing up to church. I could say that it all boils down into the answer of that they perceived hypocrisy is what they've said in the church. That they feel like what they've seen inside the church is hypocrisy. What do you guys think about that? That kind of answer to why the kids aren't showing up. Do you think there's any legitimacy to that question?
I think there's truth to that, and I brought, because what the discussion, I brought some graphs. I'm just going to go to the latter one I have.
Sure.
That shows it's about what more rituals by generation, and it shows that the elders, I guess, was that the greatest generation of the ones before the boomers. Lying was pretty bad for, they considered lying, the majority considered lying bad, but there's still 40% that's like lying's okay. And abortion as being wrong. 40% of elders, maybe 38% of Gen X, because I guess I know most everybody my age, definitely, especially in church, there's a good bit that believe abortion is wrong, but the majority, 60%, is there, and it gets lower with each generation. If you see on these charts, sex before marriage, Gen Z says 21%, but then the elders are like 22%. So that's one of the things maybe that never, was, I think, the highest morally in our country. So there's different things, homosexual behavior. I think it's like around 40% of elders say that it's wrong, but then you have a lot of them that say it's okay. So even though there's this percentage, there's been a lot of immorality, I think, in all generations, and maybe that's where they see some hypocrisy. It's like, do what I say, not what I do, type of things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that like you're saying, the information explosion has shown them examples of the hypocrisy within Christianity, because we've got all of these stories out there now. You can't escape it. Okay, when I was younger, Jim Bakker and Jimmy Swaggart and their scandals, they were a big deal. They were in all the newspapers, but you weren't aware of this minister over here or that minister over there. Now you are. I see almost every couple of weeks on some minister doing something wrong somewhere on my smartphone, okay? Because there's so much information out there, that it's seeping into everyone's consciousness that Christianity has these standards, but then the leaders of Christianity don't live up to these standards. I think things true when you look back at the Watergate experience and the fact that government was not living up to the standards that people expected of them. That began a slow, progressive downward spiral for believing in a big institution like government. And I think the same thing has happened to the church, especially the Church of God, and the various scandals that have occurred in the Church of God, whether they're sexual scandals or individuals who can't get along with each other, dividing the church further and further. And I had me yesterday who's in an independent group, and we had not talked in a while. I've known him for many years, and we were commiserating on, hey, I wish we could spend more time together. And what he said relates to what we're talking about today. Mike, I don't want people telling me what to do all the time. And the point he was making in being independent was he didn't want to have some headquarters organization deciding how their local group is this, that, or the other thing. And I can get that. I think we need to have less control over our individual groups. And I think we do a good job within CGI as opposed to some of the other corporate churches. But I think that's another thing, the control factor, and not letting people just be who they are, and have some freedom and liberty within their little local group.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
I think that is actually where we need to be focusing on, by the way. So yeah, I think the only response to "you're a hypocrite" is yes, and help me. Right? We all say
Yeah.
better than we do. All right. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I think the problem is that has not been the response of most ministers and most people in leadership capacities. Has been have it all together at all costs. Always have it together as a minister. Never let them see you sweating. Never let them see you vulnerable, right? And that has, I think that has actually put us in the state of affairs that we're in right now, has contributed to it for sure. And that also looks like corporate, or what we'll say the headquarters, being very stringent and very controlling because they're so paranoid about anything that can be perceived as weakness that they want everyone to toe the line. They want everyone to not manage themselves individually, like you were talking about, Mike. But they want everyone to, lockstep and line up right against the standards that we set before you. That's not how it's going. Now it's basically going into I think that people need to see us healing our communities, right? We need to go back to really focusing on the grassroots level of our organizations, even if we are large corporate groups. There needs to be a large emphasis on letting local ministers manage their group the way that they see fit, because they know all these issues that people are going through. They can see it. And that young people are saying, hey, look, you say you care, you say you love us, you say you're interested in us, but it doesn't occur that way. And now they could be wrong. I mean, they could be wrong in some ways. What do they know? I mean that, endearingly, but they, when we're all young, we didn't know very much. We need to, we need to listen to our elders, let's say. But I think a lot of that, the issues we've seen before us is this preoccupation, at least from leadership, to look like we have it all together and to avoid being vulnerable almost at all cost. And that's been kind of poisoning the well.
Yeah. What you're saying and what Mike said, I know if somebody does a search like on, say, just Church of God International, you're going to find out in our history we had a scandal that happened in the 90s with the founder of this organization, and you're going to see links to video of the scandal that is online, to links of I think Geraldo or somebody, a show where the person who was victimized is talking. So yeah, that's out there. That was wrong. We dealt with it the best that we could as a church. But yeah, I think what you said, Blake, just got to admit it. So yeah, it happened. That was wrong. That's not what we want to be in the church. It's that people fail. We all have sinned and fall short.
That's right. We do.
Yeah. We're human. We're human.
And we.
I'm sorry, Blake.
It's fine. So there's young people that they are so anxious. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've been with young people, I'm saying like Gen Z, they are very anxious individuals. They have a lot of anxiety. They're, like you were saying, your daughter is very concerned with what people are saying on social media. She's not alone in that. She's represented, by her counterparts, right? Her peers are the same way in a lot of ways. And I'm thinking, okay, so let's not lose the fox here. So we have, what do we say to these young people about why they should be a Christian? Right. This is what I'm trying to focus in on. What is missing here? I think it's something about vulnerability. Like, I think it's something about like, say, hey, look, I know what it's like, to be fearful of what's going on around you. I know what it's like to not be okay with not having the answers, right? And this is why I'm a Christian. That's right. I mean, giving a logical, rational answer of why I'm a Christian, and then giving them a real world example, and being okay with them seeing you as being less than perfect, being responsible, obviously, with what you share.
You're hitting on something there. I think the ability aspect, what I tell my daughter is, the reason it doesn't bother me what someone would say, I could care less what anyone said. And some people say some things, if I get some feedback, okay? And I don't care. It goes over my head, because the most important thing to me is getting into the kingdom of God, and the assurance
Amen.
I have, the promises I have from God that you will be resurrected. You will be with me in that kingdom if you accept me and have a relationship with me. All my problems fall away with that relationship. I try to get that across. That's why I don't worry. That's why I don't fret. That's why I seem to be impervious to whatever's going on out there. And I don't worry about inflation.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about this. Hey, it might impact me, but all that matters is getting into that kingdom, even your own life, folks. What we got to remember is life is temporary. It's all temporary. And we put so much importance and emphasis on the here and now and the world and the physical and the carnal. We have to separate from that. And I think technology is pulling us back into that and making it of greater importance than the spiritual side. So great point there, Blake.
You too, man. Absolutely. The vulnerability is I think, something we should hone in on. There's a book here called Fool's Talk. Such a good book for anyone in a leadership capacity. It's by Os Guinness. Great book. Talks about rediscovering the art of Christian apologetics or persuasion. And it's about, look, you should be okay with being perceived as being a fool. It's okay. It seems foolish to a lot of people who are wise in this way in the world. What does Galatians 6:3 say? I have it up here. It's Galatians 6:3 says, if anyone among you thinks that he is wise in this age, he must become foolish so that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in the sight of God. I mean, isn't that what's going on right now before us? I mean, completely. That everyone thinks they know what's going on. They have Google at the fingertips. They know everything, but yet they're depressed. They're more medicated than any other generation ever. The suicide's on the rise, right? They're not showing up to church. It's going poorly, right? It's been better and easier to live life than ever. Yet we are most depressed and most disconnected. It's very strange, and it's exactly about what this verse is talking about. Like you were saying, Mike, really being okay with just, letting things just roll off your back and just really, and what I think it boils down into is having one-on-one conversations with people. And let's take away generation thing right now. Let's just having one-on-one conversations with people and actually being interested in what's going on in their life. It's as simple as that. And there's been too much focus, I think, on maybe how do we reach everyone? How do we reach the whole world? Well, it starts right there in your backyard, man. It starts there. Do you know your neighbors? Do you know your neighbor's name? Have you invited them over for dinner? I mean, these are very practical, like, just having conversations with your neighbor, being interested in them, being interested in what's going on, seeing if you can be of assistance, being of service. And then, see where that goes. I mean, I think that's kind of the duh factor to the gospel.
Yeah. You know what? The fact that we're more connected today, it makes us less connected with people.
Yeah.
That people online seem to be
good point,
right.
there, Jeff.
So the more that we are connected,
that was a good one.
The more that we're connected online, the less we are connected with people. Really and I think that's because you think about 100 years ago, agrarian people lived in a community. They helped each other. They had potlucks. They had meals together. They visited. Kids would go out and play together, have little adventures. The technology. Again, nothing wrong with technology, but the what has happened is, and the way people are using it is leading to some evils where that disconnection's there. People online are sometimes their worst version of themselves. People who I thought were just nice folks will just say some ugly things to you online, not knowing how it comes across and stuff. I remember back when we first put some YouTube videos on back in maybe 2008. We did some for Infuse. Mike James had something he put on there, and there was people, they were making fun of Mike, and then I was on there, and people were on the YouTube channels, they were making fun of me. I was like, these people are awful. And if you go read like comments on YouTube about stuff, it's terrible. You go read stuff on Facebook or on Twitter, people say terrible, awful things because they don't know how to connect with people, because they don't know how. That's their worst version of themselves, and it's leading to a lot of depression, a lot of
Totally.
people who are
Yeah.
lonely, sad, and that need Jesus, and that's what we're here for,
Amen.
to
Amen.
teach them about Jesus and the gospel.
I think that's an
Yeah, 'cause
interesting
once
point. Yeah, this from agrarian to urbanization. I think Bill was commenting on this as well. It's a huge trend. Yeah, from moving away from the rural farms into cities, and that's how it was supposed to go. I mean, in some way, with industrialization, right? We were able to industrialize farming, so there wasn't as much of a need. And you've also seen this in the demographics as well. When you were on the farm, guess what children were? Labor.
on the farm.
Labor,
Yeah.
man. And when we started to move into the cities, they didn't become labor; they became expensive pieces of furniture. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I mean, look, right? I mean, they were really, I mean, they're expensive. You have to take them with you, right? Obviously, I think I sent over a demographics, a demography chart to you, Jeff. If you wouldn't mind putting that up.
Okay,
It's pretty
the first one.
interesting.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one that shows America over the,
Okay.
this is also what we're facing right now too, guys. We are having less and less children. There are, as you can see, the top of the graph here is the oldest of America's generation here, right? The silent generation. And as you normally will see this kind of a triangle, as the younger generation will be more. But as you can see, it's kind of collapsing in on itself, right? From the boomers, which was the largest generation in the United States for many years, just recently became the second largest because of just dying off. But Gen X, look at Gen X, it just tapers down, right? And then millennials, which were the children of the boomers, that come back up, and then the Zoomers. Now look at this, we're having less and less children, man. This is a trend line that also is worse. Now we think, oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's in America. Put up the next graph. It's even worse around the world.
Wow.
This is Germany up on the top left. Look at that.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're all in what they call terminal generational replacement at this point.
Mhm.
Worried about China? Are you kidding me? China's about to have an implosion of not having enough people to essentially provide enough food for all of their it's about to get bad worldwide is what I'm saying. And so so we have other problems other than just the sociological issues, right? We have a very real physical problem of not having as many people to replace positions of leadership capacity, ministerial or whatever, as well. So you couple that with some of the other effects of not being vulnerable, this idea of perceived hypocrisy. I mean, it's gonna get pretty rough here in the next 5 to 10 years.
So in the world, I guess it's the same trend of going from agrarian to industrial, and where you mentioned the children are an asset to a farm. That we got labor. We need to have a bunch of kids because we need labor. But in the city, they're more of a liability. You gotta raise them. You gotta support them. You gotta keep them entertained. You gotta do all this stuff until they get old enough to go out and earn an income on their own. So that causes people to be like, why do we need to have 10 kids? In the
We
city.
have
Yeah.
2.2 for generational replacement. 2.2. America's at like 1.5 or 6 right now, and China's at 1.2. So I mean, the numbers are just not there. I mean, you're going to see a huge dearth of individuals to fill, again, not just a ministerial. I mean, we're talking about ministerial things right now and talking about the church, but I mean, just across the board, I think it's about to get pretty rough, and that might actually be the value proposition that we need. I don't think need per se, but will show people that it's been as good as it's ever been over the last 70 years. We just had more and more for the last 70 years, especially here in the United States. That's about to go away. So that's going to be a real issue.
There's an interesting statement from Bill, and again, I'm not familiar with this statistic, but just going around to different places where I get to speak, that would be very interesting in 10 years if 50% of the Church of God was gone. I mean, that spells trouble to me as far as trying to promote this message.
Yeah. So I mean,
that is what the numbers are showing. A lot of churches that and we're looking about Church of God. A lot of churches that maintain or grow, they do it from within. The Mormons have a lot of kids. They have a lot of kids, and they keep maybe I would be interested to see what the Mormon rate is compared to the rest of the country. But there's certain churches that have a lot of kids, so they're able to grow and maintain their churches, and ours is definitely, the greatest generation are almost all gone, and the boomers are going to be gone in 10, 20 years. And then what do we have left?
That's right. I mean, so there's all these different factors, is what I'm trying to say, that are difficult for the church right now, right? Just because we see dwindling, attendance. We see that because of a lot of different things. I saw the statistic the other day. It talked about, everyone left from COVID because we didn't have services. We're all online, but only 38% of you folks came back after COVID. Because they're hanging out in front of their couch, they're sitting back here, with their cheese plate and their Coca-Cola, and they're just hanging back watching Jeff and Mike talk on the screen, and fair enough, I get it, but we need to get back to the churches, is what I'm saying. We need to be having a big emphasis on what I think is grassroots level, not talking about the capital C church. I'm talking about the congregation. When you show up every week, those people, you look to your left, you look to your right, those people, really digging deep with those relationships, finding out what's going on with them, really finding out how you can help them out. I mean, really caring about them, not with some hidden agenda, but with just actually, have a conversation. Like I said earlier, I think it's about as simple as it gets, is being interested in loving people that are there at your congregational level. That's what I think we have to focus right now.
A lot of people would say, and this is things that we're doing, it's not wrong, because we do a lot of things online, and we're streaming, and we're on YouTube, we have apps, we have all the technologies, we're doing all the stuff. But it seems like the best way maybe to connect with the younger generation is going to be more one-on-one, in person, reaching out to people, rather than trying to do it online, because that's just not going to work that way. And we have to maybe realize that the gospel is best presented on a one-on-one, on people talking to other people, sharing their stories, sharing their experiences.
And the thing about that, Jeff, is it's harder. And I'm actually reading a booklet to my daughter on UFOs are real, but what are they? Because she has some interest in that whole side of, the unexplained phenomenon and everything like that. And it takes me time to get 4 pages and ask her questions and see if she's got comments and try to have a conversation about it. It's work. But I've come to realize that I have to spend that with her, because it's about time. We had Bill Jacobs on here, counselor in the Church of God, and he said one of the most important things with children is giving them that time, and that I can remember my dad, he had 4 boys, and he had to work the midnight shift, and I hardly saw him for a certain segment of my bringing, and he wasn't there in that sense as he was later for my youngest brother, because he had gotten to a point in his career where he could spend more time with the kids. But that missing my father's time for a period of my teenage years, I think, had an impact on me. And my wife has made me well aware of needing to spend that time with my daughter, which I'm trying to do right now. But just time with people builds those relationships, Blake, that you're getting at. And I think
positive eye contact.
Yeah, that's hard. That's harder work. It's harder work to listen to someone, to just listen to what's going on for them. And I had an experience this past week in Kansas and at my local church, where listening to someone and asking them a question after hearing a lot of their stuff, I caused 2 people to cry just from asking them a question. And so I knew that there was something happened there. That, I gave him a hug because of that. I felt bad. I brought up those emotions, but that's what it's all about. Let's get real with each other and really talk about whether or us, and let's find solutions in those relationships, real relationships.
Yeah, so I'm at the Tyler CGI, And I'm there for a real reason, which was my wife and I sat down and discussed what church whenever we moved to Tyler, where we wanted to go. And you know what happened? My wife tells me, we're going to CGI, and I want to go to CGI because those people care. And so, what do you mean? You know, you don't want to go to this other church or that church? And, you know, I'm not going to name names, but she said, no, I didn't feel the amount of love that I felt at CGI. And, you know, people came over to us and they talked to us and they asked us about what's going on. And they wasn't a put on. They were really curious and they were really interested about what was going on in our lives. And they were really, you know, and they gave us some good advice. And it's like, you know, there is something here that we want to be a part of. And that's what we want, to have churches that are a place where people can come to. They feel like they're seen. They feel like they're important. They feel like they're, you know, there's someone that's there that will have their back. And just this last Sabbath, we had a young person that was there, and I took an interest in it. I was practicing what I'm preaching here, right? I was talking to her and I was asking about what's going on, and come to find out she's crippled in some ways with anxiety. She's throwing up every other day from anxiety attacks and is medicated. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so we had like a 45-minute conversation. I ended up anointing her, and she's, you know, she's in tears, right? She's like, can I please give you a hug? And it's like, you know, I just felt in this moment that like, this has been the simplest and easiest thing ever to do. And it seems like this is what people are starving for with this whole online stuff, right? You can't hug a computer screen. You know, you can't worship in front of your, you know, on your couch, y'all. I know that some of you, you know, some people can't get down to the church because of, you know, the physical hindrances, but you know, let's get out there and try to help. Let's go visit a shut-in, you know, is kind of the idea. Let's again kind of create I think relationship is what's missing. Whenever they say they see this as perceived hypocrisy, right? That's what they said. That's what I mean. We could boil it down into that one critique of the church. That's why we need to be real with them. We need to be having conversations with them. And I think that's, for me personally, that's my opinion of what's missing here. We can still augment our services with technology. That's fine. That's great. That's wonderful. Don't do any of that. You know, don't pull that away. But and I think someone else said on here, it's not just the church's job. It's every member's job. Every single person in the church. This is, you know, for you, not just ministers, not just, you know, people in leadership capacities. So
yeah.
That's a big one there. Yeah. Jeff, did you want
Yeah,
to say
I guess
something?
I was saying, you know, you speak of the local church, and yeah, I was part of Tyler. Wonderful people there, wonderful community, a lot of kids there, a lot of families there, it seems, and it's definitely good to be able to be a part of that. The trend, I guess, what we have to do, and you know, if you think about the last couple of years, has taken people out of their workplace and they're working at home. Like most of the people most of the people who started working at home have not gone back to work because they like working at home, but they're not getting that connection anymore. They're getting it through the computer, and you know, and a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people who decided to keep church at home are still at home and they have not come back for whatever reason. And we got to be, as far as our church and reach, we got to be a place where people can come and interact and be amongst people. You know, the society seems that this last couple of years has made people more isolated, and so that's a big challenge. Is we got to, in the church, we got to stop that. We got to stop the isolation in the church and get it back to where we're all, you know, we're building families of church members.
I think so too. I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of what I wanted to do with the cell program, Jeff and Blake, is even if you've got 3, 4, 5 people, then be alone in your home. Go to one of those 3, 4, or 5 and watch video together rather than watch it by yourself, because afterwards you can have that human connection afterwards. And again, it's a task trying to put these small cells together. You get 3 or 4 people that are actually within 20 miles of each other, but then there's a complaint about, you know, well, I got to do this to go there, and I got to go do that, and and they're telling you that it's easier for them just to stay where they're at, and it's like pulling teeth sometimes. They've sent in the paper to express an interest in the cell thing, But once you tell
Mhm.
them they got to drive 20 miles or you got to go into this person's, how they start to feel about it. And you can bring a horse to, but you can't make him drink.
Keep it up,
Yeah.
Mike. Keep it up, man. I know it's definitely, like you said, it's more difficult, now than ever in some ways, right? And it's
Yeah,
definitely, this is
even
much
with
different.
gas prices are
That's true.
are
Yeah.
out there, right? Because like, hey, why? Like, I know with my wife who works at home and loves working at home, driving to the office is expensive if you got to go to downtown Atlanta and then come back every day, and then when it's like gas is $5 a gallon, it's just even more so. And I can imagine for some people can't afford to go to church. Because they have like in their budget, like, well, it's going to be expensive to go that 100 miles and come back. That's money they don't have, and so that's maybe we have to figure out ways to reach out to those folks. I know when I was a kid, and this is just an idea, we had a church bus that was part of the church I was part of. They came and picked me up and took me to
Oh,
church
that's
on the church
smart.
bus,
That might
on the
be
church
smart.
bus and stuff. So maybe if there's a way
A van or
to have
something.
people
Yeah.
commute with each other, or have church vans or something. There's got to be something that we can not let high gas prices,
Yeah,
not let online isolation, not let that stop the church, because then we're defeated, and the church drives when
we
we're together.
we right. We
Beautiful.
pick up some people and bring them to church in my local congregation here. A couple of us will someone who needs a ride from time to time, and so that needs to be done. We need to ask people, hey, can we get you a ride? Can we bring you in? I just want to point out we've got Uganda, Kenya, and India, and just my experience and talk to some of these people in those foreign countries, you gotta understand the roadblocks that they have to meeting together. Yet they're still together. Some of them are walking great distances. They don't have the means and the technology to do what we're doing here in the States, and they're still getting together and meeting than we are here in the States. So again, hats off to our friends in India and what they're trying to do to continue the connection.
That's the other question I had for myself was, a lot of what we focused on our conversation today has been on
anything else we haven't
the
gotten
United
to?
States. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Everything
I
coming
can
through?
hear you. I think might be me on
Okay.
a lower connection, but go ahead.
Yeah, I see we're going a little late on the time here. So yeah, I wanted to touch on a couple of things. One is just real quick, like I just said, I don't know. United States seems like it's following it. We're looking down the barrel of a post-Christian America in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So maybe the gospel message is moving. I won't say the gospel message is moving. I'll just say this: there might be peoples out there that we haven't considered that are flocking to the gospel message right now because it's a very it's God's preferential treatment towards the poor and the dejected and the least of us, let's say. So we're so opulent here in the United States. There's very little of a value proposition for a lot of young people because they have everything they want. I mean, in a lot of ways, right? They're not suffering at all. These people that are dealing with real hunger every single day, dealing with real oppression from, government institutions, all these things, they love the gospel message. Anyway, so I've thought about that as well. Maybe making sure that our foreign brothers and sisters have everything they need to really do a good work. And then the other thing was real quick as well, before we can conclude, is just the idea that we trust the process, that we trust that this is all working. That there's a peace whenever you're trusting that this is the way that it's supposed to be, that you're with God, right? That these kids are anxious, right? They want peace. And so when they're in your presence, you want to exude that peace that comes from knowing God and knowing his plan that he has for you, that they can kind of see that and want that. There's going to be something visceral inside them that goes, whatever's going on over here, whatever he's doing, I want some of this, right? I want some of that peace. And that's what I think that we can really hone in on. And I think those conversations, being okay and being peaceful about being vulnerable, not buying into the identity politics and all this. I think we're preoccupied with identity here in the world. everyone has to know what their identity is as far as everything but a Christian, right? Are they straight? Are they gay? Are they, man, woman, all this stuff? It's all about identity these days. We notice that too. There's always, wanting kids to get their identity figured out. When you are been bought and purchased by Jesus Christ, and that's your identity, really. But dispensing with all that stuff and letting them feel the peace of, and letting them see you struggle with some of the things and how you handle it in stride. I think that's one of the best forms of evangelism you can have when you're having these conversations with young people, is to make sure they feel that peace that you experience from knowing, what God has in plan for. But that's all I really wanted to communicate today, guys. I appreciate having me on.
I want to read a comment from Bill Lucenhide, and
Sure.
he's been working overtime on these comments. So
I've been seeing him.
Yeah. So Bill says, we're definitely in a post-Christian society now, not working towards, but we're now increasing. I would say that he's right.
By
I think
by the numbers,
we're post-Christian. And here's the thing that, and maybe there's pockets like Tyler, Texas is a very Christian area, but maybe Los Angeles isn't. So there's different areas that are Christian and not Christian and stuff. But if we think about the Roe versus Wade being overturned, that had to happen because of a president who was conservative and reporting conservative judges so that they could be there and make that decision. But the society we're in, the majority of people want abortion. And so I just don't see, if the majority of people want abortion, the majority of people don't see that as wrong. I don't know how long that can last, in a non-Christian society. And there's going to be a point where it's going to be legal again. It's legal, and you'll be driving to California from Texas or whatever. It's just the will of the people is not Christian. And so that's what we have to realize. We have to be like the ones in the Bible who were talking to the non-Christians. That's what we're talking to. We're talking to
Babylon.
Yeah. We're talking to a Babylon, and it's getting, it's getting that towards the Sodom and Gomorrah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what Bill's statement was there, Jeff. And I'm writing a short blog. It'll be towards the end of this month. We'll put it on. But the latest information, the latest polling on the amount of people in the United States that believe is the literal word of God has dropped to its lowest point yet, and it's down to 20%, 21%, somewhere in there, of Americans believe that the Bible is the literal word of God. And there's 65% who claim to be Christian in the United States. Dropped dramatically from the 50s when it was in the 90s. Okay, I think it's more important to understand how many believe the Bible is the real word of God. That's down into the 20%. That is a big deal. Okay, that is a big deal to me. That if only 20-some% of Americans believe the Bible is the word of God, once you drop below 50%, folks, there's really no going back to what it was. And I just see a slow, steady progression of the nominal Christianity. When that drops below 50%, we really need to watch out for where our may be going. But as you said, we have to keep doing what we're doing. We'll stop doing what we're doing, regardless of what's happening out there.
Nope, that's right. And to be confident, to not be arrogant, but to be confident. That's the other part of this: peace, confidence, love, community, relationship. This is where I think we will have the remnant be preserved. We're talking about Christianity also writ large, right? So this means Protestants, this means Catholics, this means people that are part of what we'll call the grace and prosperity doctrine. In other words, the ones that are confessing to be Christian kind of have gotten us in this predicament in the first place, by the way. The grace and prosperity doctrine, is, let's say the Diet Coke of Christianity, tastes great, less filling. You know what I mean? It's this idea of, promising you that everything's going to be okay. And then the kids are like, well, that's just wrong. And so
it fills up the seats.
It does. It does until it doesn't. And that's where we're at right now.
It's
The big
filling-
crunch. Yeah. They're seeing it kind of come away, and
Yeah.
people are kind of saying, "Hey, look, no more." It's because it was all about entertainment. It was all about emotions. It was all about making you feel something. It was all about pandering to consumer Christians, and that's what they are, right? They're consumer Christians. We're not consumer Christians. This is a way of life that we live. When it's good, when it's bad, no matter what, this is what you can count on. And this is, I think, this is what we need to show them what shared suffering looks like. I think there's suffering out there in front of us, guys. I think that we've had it as bad as, I think this is where the wave has crested. I think it's broke, and I think it's receding. As far as the opulence, I think of the access to more around the world. I think, the war happening, Sri Lanka collapsing. There's all these things in inflation, runaway debt. We are basically, we need to be in a position to where we are going to now be a hospital for the broken. The people that are still trying, people that are trying to figure out how they're going to eat. Famine is out there. I mean, a lot of things. I think, in other words, we buckle up. I think it's about to get rough, and I think that's where we're at.
The church of God is needed more now than ever in our society. So we have to be ready to be that light as best we can. So thank you, Blake, for joining us today. And I want to thank everybody out there for their comments. And we will be back in next week. And we are happy to provide this service every week on Tuesday afternoon. And most of you watching it later on. Again, thank you for joining us. And we'll see everybody next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.